Let's jump right into this explainer because we are looking at a massive, literal, groundbreaking mystery happening right beneath our feet. We walk around every single day just assuming the ground we stand on is this permanent, unchanging thing. But the Earth, it's incredibly dynamic. And right now, scientists are tracking something absolutely monumental. Is Africa tearing itself apart? That's the wild question geologists are trying to answer as they investigate the possibility of a brand new tectonic plate boundary opening up in southern Africa. We are talking about the literal reshaping of an entire continent. I mean, it sounds like the plot of a sci-fi movie, right? But as we're going to see, the evidence is literally bubbling up right out of the ground. Section 1. A continent tearing apart, the macro view. To really wrap our heads around this, we need to zoom way out and look at the massive forces that shape our planet. We've got this phenomenal, super rare opportunity to compare an ancient, well-established rift with a continental split in its very earliest stages. So on one hand, you've got the famous East African Rift Valley. This is a massive geological feature stretching all the way from the Red Sea down to Mozambique, and it's been actively pulling apart for tens of millions of years. It's a pretty well-known phenomenon. But compare that to the Kafue Rift in Zambia. This is something incredibly unusual. Geologists almost never get to find a site where the rifting process is just barely kicking off. It's kind of like catching the very first frame of a movie that's going to take millions of years to play out. Section 2. The Kafue Rift Mystery. Examining the clues. Okay, let's head to the scene of the crime. We're looking at a massive 2,500-kilometer-long rift zone stretching from Tanzania all the way to Namibia. Geologists have been staring at this region and noticing some highly suspicious signs. For starters, the geography itself just looks like a rift. But then they've recorded low-gravity anomalies, which basically tells us something really unusual is happening with the mass deep beneath the surface. Add to that high subsurface temperatures and a constant background hum of low-level seismicity, tiny earthquakes. All of these physical breadcrumbs strongly suggested that a new boundary between continental plates was just starting to form. But here's the thing, physical signs alone aren't quite enough. They really needed hard chemical evidence. Section 3. The Mantle's Smoking Gun. The Oxford Discovery. And that brings us to a huge breakthrough made by researcher Ruta Carliti and her team at the University of Oxford. These guys basically acted like geological detectives. To find that missing proof, they couldn't just look at the rocks lying around on the surface. No, they had to look at what was coming up from way down below. So they traveled to central Zambia and collected gases from 5 boiling hot springs and 3 geothermal wells. Now, these springs aren't just pretty tourist spots. They actually act as direct windows into the deep earth, venting out gases that have been trapped down there for absolutely ages. And wow, here is what they discovered. They analyzed those gas samples, looking specifically at the helium and carbon isotope ratios. If you didn't know, isotopes act like a chemical fingerprint. They tell you exactly where a substance came from. The Oxford team found that the ratios in these Zambian hot springs directly match the ratios that exist deep beneath Earth's crust, way down in the mantle. Boom! They found the smoking gun. It's a chemical signature proving, without a doubt, that fluids from the Earth's mantle are making their way all the way up to the surface. So the absolute craziest part of this is exactly how far those fluids have traveled. That specific chemical signature proves these gases are rising from an astonishing depth of up to 190 kilometers. Just let that number sink in for a second. 190 kilometers. For gases to travel that far straight up from the mantle to a hot spring in Zambia, there has to be a clear, open pathway. And that strongly implies a massive, deep tear in the tectonic plates of the region. The continent is essentially unzipping from the bottom up. As the lead researcher Ruta Carliti puts it, what our data confirms is that this system is currently awake and geologically active. I love that framing because it completely changes how you look at the landscape. A place that might seem super quiet and totally still to us on a human timescale is actually this highly active, living geological system undergoing a profound, massive transformation. And other experts in the field totally agree with this assessment. Patrice Reissu over at the University of Sydney notes that, hey, even though this area doesn't have active volcanoes or massive destructive earthquakes right now, the signs are all there. He points out that the Kafue Rift is an early-stage continental rift where mantle fluids rich in primordial helium-3 are rising through faults. That primordial helium is the absolute key here. It's an unmistakable signal that a brand new plate boundary may be evolving right beneath Central Africa as we speak. Section 4. Helium, a high-tech treasure. Why this matters right now. So, you might be wondering, why does this matter to us today, beyond just being incredibly cool science? Well, the early stages of continental rifting do something really interesting. They release gases that have been trapped inside solid rock for millions of years. And in the Kafue Rift, this exact process is creating incredibly high helium concentrations of up to 2.3% in the fluids reaching the surface. Now, okay, 2.3% might sound like a tiny drop in the bucket in everyday life, but in the world of geology and resource extraction, that is an absolute gold mine. And why exactly is it a gold mine? Because helium is way, way more than just a party trick to make balloons float. It's actually a supercritical resource for the high-tech industry and modern medicine. We literally rely on it for everything from cooling MRI machines in hospitals to manufacturing semiconductors and even exploring space. But here's the catch. It is notoriously hard to find tectonic conditions that concentrate and release helium in a way that we can actually capture it. Most of the time, it just slips away and escapes right into the atmosphere. So that makes the unique early-stage rifting happening right now in the Kafue Rift a massive, massive target for industrial interest. Section 5. The distant future. Zooming out. All right, let's zoom out from the high-tech industries of today and look toward the unimaginably distant future of our planet. Right now, in the present day, we're just seeing early-stage rifting and gas release in the Kafue Rift. It's just a whisper of what's to come. But fast forward millions of years, and this continued rifting could lead to the tectonic plate entirely splitting in two. And if we look, say, 100 million years down the line, according to researchers like Ruta Carlite, while it's not guaranteed, there is a very real possibility that this tear could result in the formation of a brand new ocean. This timeline perfectly shows how a tiny little leak of helium today is just the very first step in a monumental process that could eventually tear the entire continent in half and let the ocean rush right in. Which leaves us with a final, truly astonishing question. What will the map of the world look like in 100 million years? The borders and coastlines that we just take for granted are actually entirely temporary. The Earth is rewriting its own map right now, starting with a plume of invisible gas rising from deep beneath Zambia. It's a brilliant reminder of the ever-changing nature of the ground beneath our feet. I really hope this explainer sparked your curiosity to learn more about the incredible living planet we call home.